comment. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the 4 Stars Podcast. My name is Kyle. This is Nick right here, and this is Zane, our second guest on the podcast. We've been waiting to do this for quite a bit. Just figured out how to make these 3 mics work. Just a quick little disclaimer, but let's get right into it, guys. What's going on?
Not too much.
Having a good time.
Once again, Monday at almost 9 o'clock.
Yeah, let's see.
Or Tuesday, actually. Short
Nice.
week. It's Tuesday. Feels like Monday, but
Beautiful.
yeah.
Getting out of Memorial Day, quarantine Memorial Day.
Yep.
Always fun.
Which has been interesting. Yeah, no barbecues, nothing super major. I mean, we might have barbecued anyway.
Yeah,
We won't,
we
won't say anything.
Don't tell anyone. But the reason that we really wanted to get Zane on the podcast really right away, because a lot of with 4 Stars, I think that we need to establish is what our mission is and where we're trying to go. And our big thing is really telling, our friends and the people around us their stories and giving them that platform to do so, to inspire others and give other people kind of an outlook. So none of us are really the same in the sense of where we came from and what we're doing now necessarily. Obviously, there is definitely a lot of similarities. However, what we did to get here is all different. So Zane did not go to college technically. He went for a 1 semester?
Yeah, I did about half a semester at a community college, and that was it.
Exactly. And he ended up in finance. Well, we're going to get into everything, but just kind of a preface. And then obviously I just graduated from college, but I built a business, before and during, and was never really into it. And Nick went to college and left college with a finance degree and went into actual finance, but then left his job. So very different spectrums, which I think will be really cool for conversation because it'll give us the ability to kind of understand, the thought process that goes. Because everyone thinks like, oh man, you really were smart by making that decision. And it's like it never feels that way at the time. So I think it's really important to kind of dissect where each person comes from, and more so both of you guys, so we can kind of see what we can do to help other people with that. So with that being said, obviously you guys know Nick and myself, but Zane, give us a little introduction about who you are, what you do, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So I work in finance, as Kyle's mentioned. I took an odd path, I guess you could say, to get there. It's not the norm. I have clients and customers ask me all the time, where'd you get your degree? Where'd you get your master's, this and that? And it's a little surprising to them to tell them, that wasn't there. It was a different path to get there. So about me, I don't know, I like cars and I like motorcycles, and that's what fuels my that's what provides me the motivation to keep trying to work hard so I can pay for that crap.
Yeah.
Because it does get pricey, as I think everyone at this table knows.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
100%. It's like that. What you posted something? It's like an addiction. It's like
Yeah.
So
you buy a Hot Wheels for 99 cents.
Yeah. So
and
it's funny because I tell this story to my clients every once in a while too. The ones that so I work for BMW. And a specific portion of our clients are hardcore car enthusiasts, the ones buying the M cars and stuff like that. And I tell them, hey man, I came from the same thing. I was a hardcore car enthusiast too. And what I usually tell them is before I could walk, I had 120 Matchbox cars. And so what I posted was those 90-cent Hot Wheels and Matchbox cars turned into a crippling car addiction.
Literally. I think it's more expensive than most people's drug addictions, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
but at least
Sometimes I pray for a drug addiction.
yeah, that's what you want. No, we're just kidding. We don't advocate for any of that stuff.
Absolutely not. No. Keep with the cars.
Yeah.
Keep with the cars.
But I think what's interesting is to know is like, okay, when we want to kind of base this around, higher education, stuff like that, whether or not it makes sense. Obviously, Zane became very successful without it, and it's interesting to see because most people would think like, oh, wait, there's no way that you can get that kind of position or job, a high-level finance position at not only such a young age. Zane is 28?
28 now, yeah.
29 in October?
Yeah, 29 in October, and I think I moved into my position when I was 24.
Yeah. And that's heavily dominated by people who are in their late 30s, early 40s, 50s kind of thing, right?
And that would even be putting it on the light end. I mean, if I take my former partners that I've had at places that I've worked, they're into their 50s. I mean, late 40s, early 50s, sometimes even.
Because it takes a long time, and you kind of skipped a bunch of steps or leveled up quicker. I guess.
And a lot of it is where you do what you do.
Yeah.
You can go to places that maybe don't expect as seasoned of a person or as skilled of a person, places with slightly lower standards because they put a little bit less emphasis on the finance position.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of guys that are 22, 25 years old that are moving into it, but to get to what I at least consider one of the more top tier positions, it's usually people who've been doing it for some time.
Yeah, for sure.
So I feel like people have a misconception in the dealership industry.
Oh yeah.
They think that the salespeople make all the money, and for people in the industry, they know how important the finance position is. So why don't you touch on that a little bit and just talk about the importance of your position and the role it plays?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's been a big shift in kind of how the car industry works, with the internet. And that's it's been a complete game changer for the way that on the customer side, the way that people buy cars and are educated on them, and on the dealer side on how we can cater to this new market that's emerging or a new style that's emerging. So before, the internet, things were very different. There was very big margins on cars. You could make, there was a typical dealership, they're going to make $5-6 grand on every car. It doesn't happen anymore. It's really a volume game now. So the finance position is one that adds a little bit of a extra coating of some kind of profit. And that's become a little bit more critical as the profit margin shrinks significantly on what we call the front end, which is the actual, if you buy a car for 30 grand and you sell it for 35 or 32 or 31 or whatever it ends up being, that's called the front end. So that's been slimmed down significantly, especially in the used car market, because you can shop 10,000 different cars at once. If you're looking at a Toyota Camry, there's a million of them out there, and you can just go online. You don't have to leave your home. You don't have to step into anywhere. So the finance position has kind of changed a little bit, and it's become, it's become a little bit more critical, I would say.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's super beneficial too, because that's most people who buy cars don't buy them in cash. So being able to have the support at the time of purchase is obviously such a big deal and plays a huge role. But I think overall the car industry in itself kind of gets a bad rap because of a few bad apples.
Sure.
Or maybe more than a few bad apples, but you know what I mean.
And it's not only bad apples, it's bad history. There's, again, the internet has changed things so much. So think about in 1980, you go into a car dealership and you say, hey, I want to buy this car, and you have a terrible experience because the guy you work with is a jerk and they try to, pull fast ones on you. You can't do that anymore. If I do that to you, if you walk into my store and I either treat you poorly or I'm rude to you or I try to mislead you or lie to you, the first thing you're going to do, especially our generation, is jump on Google, put up a 1-star review and say this, and this is what happened. Yeah. Now, in my specific scenario, and this is relatively universal, there's a lot of competition, right? Especially in our market. We're in the Chicagoland market. There's 5 versions of every single brand here. So for BMW, for example, which is what I know, there's 6 or 7 that are in our market. And as soon as you see multiple bad reviews about, hey, I was mistreated here, I was treated poorly here, you're going to go to someone else. Yeah. So it's, in that sense, for one of the first ways, the clients and the dealers' incentives are completely aligned in providing a good experience, because we don't want to lose the clientele. We want people to expect a good experience there, and we want to provide it so that people keep coming back and we get good reviews and stuff like that. So you're absolutely right. It had a bad rap, and it still does, and there's still certain places out there that are maybe not as focused on providing a good customer experience. It's rare now in the luxury segment because it's a different type of customer. It's a customer that can get up and walk away if they want to, and they can go somewhere else. They're not indebted to us in any way, by low credit scores, things like that. So it's not the case anymore. Yeah. Do we see people expect that when they come in? Absolutely. Yeah. And sometimes we get treated like crap because people are expecting that, and it happens, and it's unfortunate, but building that trust from your clientele is super important because of that.
Yeah, for sure. So, give us a little bit of a background for anyone who isn't aware, because we obviously all have been and dabbled in the car industry. What exactly is it that you help facilitate, and what do you think the most common struggles and hurdles that you think make you particularly good at your job, or like seasoned, or what you learned over time?
Sure. So I'll start with the main responsibilities of what my position are, and the first thing, as it's said in the car business, is called delivering the car. So no matter what, lack of profit or otherwise, the number one responsibility is to make sure that the customer gets what they want, and they leave with the vehicle that they've chosen. Everything else is secondary to that. And again, touching back on the last thing we brought up, that's looked at as kind of like a gimmicky thing to say. It's not the case. It truly is a number one priority of everybody there. So jumping into, I guess, the secondary responsibilities, most of it, or a significant portion of it, is called deal structuring. So you have X customer that wants Y item, and you have 8 lenders to kind of cater to that customer. You have to figure out which structure works best for them. So between the term and the rate and anything else that they want, warranties, stuff like that, you have to kind of structure a deal and a payment that the customer's happy with. That's the most important thing. And now it's interesting because it's kind of an odd thing to say, but people's credit reports are as unique as their fingerprints.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody has done the exact same thing as someone else. So you have to learn how to read that and kind of read the customer's credit DNA, so to speak, and then match it with a structure and a bank that's gonna work for them. Yeah. So that's one of the most significant portions of this job, basically, is to figure that out and figure out what's going to work for the client.
For sure. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I don't know. I think that it's such a big I mean, what is it? The second biggest purchase people make in their life. So it's a pretty damn big deal, especially, especially because a lot of people nowadays, like you said, with the internet and, really good media and content online, people they're sold on the car before they come in. You know what I mean? So they don't really need to be resold. And I feel myself in that position all the time, not just cars, but with anything. When somebody tries to sell me on something I don't need to be sold on. You know what I mean? It's just like, just take me to the cashier. I don't need to hear your spiel. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But I get it. But that's like me being like a pessimist. Most people need that experience. I mean, most people need that help because most people don't know what they want. Sure. But the internet, that's the thing. It adds that dynamic. And it's only hard. It makes it harder for businesses. But then again, it makes it more correct because it's like, it gives that dynamic of like, hey, it's the same thing we talk about with restaurants. Like, do you want the restaurant to be able to delete their Yelp reviews of like a bunch of hair being in the food? No. You don't want them to be able to do that.
Yeah,
it's like same thing with PayPal. Like you want them to be able to hold back, scammers' money, stuff like that. Because it sucks, but there's like those barriers to entry or whatever you want to call it, like to be a good business nowadays. And that's what kind of how it's supposed to be.
It raises, I guess you could say, the floor. It raises the base standard.
Yeah.
And we want that as much as. And you're never going to satisfy everybody. There's always going to be somebody that you pissed off, no matter what business you run or what you do, what industry you're in.
It's impossible not to.
So as much as we would love to be able to take out or take off a review that was maybe unjustly or unfairly put up that's negative, the overall benefit is still there of, hey, it raises the floor. You're going to weed out the truly bad businesses out there.
Yeah.
And if you run a clean shop, you'll succeed because of that.
Yeah.
So
I absolutely agree with you. And I know a lot of people say that customers have way too much power nowadays, just for that reason exactly, as they can bash you even if you didn't do anything wrong
even
in your
if it's
eyes.
Not justified, yeah.
But at the same time, it also puts more pressure on the business to perform well. So I think it evens itself out.
Yeah, and I would say it certainly works to the benefit of the client and the business. I mean, one of the most critical things you can try to do for your business is make you and your customers' incentives aligned, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you have the same goals, it'll push you to be better, and it'll push the customer to purchase from you,
for sure,
to buy your service or product. So I absolutely think it's a good thing, and it's kind of like the free market at work, right? Like somebody can go up there and throw a review on there that's completely unjustified, but it's going to force you to work harder on your other 9 out of those 10 customers to make sure that you get the 5 stars there.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's all right. It happens. What are you going to do? But it does give you the incentive to work a little harder towards the customers that will fairly grade you.
For sure. I mean, what do you think built you? I know, I think we should touch a lot on your background as we know you, and a lot of people don't, like your military background and stuff like that, like your life before that. Getting into what made you the person kind of regimented, I don't want to say corporate, but in that sense of very professional type job sort of, how did you end up there? Because I know you weren't always like that.
No.
You weren't the kind of guy you'd assume to be in that position in a 5 to 10 year span.
Yeah, no, and it's funny you say that. I remember my good buddies, my closest friends growing up in middle school and high school, shout them out, Jason, Mike, Teddy, Eric, these guys were all Bryce. They were all telling me that, so I got pretty poor grades in high school.
Yeah.
And I didn't for maybe the first year, and after that I just found myself pretty disinterested, which was the main motivator for not trying that hard.
Right.
I could have been a straight A student, and I'm fairly certain of that because I was for a portion, but it was just a lack of interest that, I mean, I went out of my way to do as little as possible in high school, and I passed every class with a 60% D.
Yeah.
And I got the same diploma as everyone else, right? And I remember those few people I mentioned, I mean, since I was a kid, always had my back, were looking out for my interests. And they would tell me, listen, man, you're smart, you can do a lot, but if you keep getting grades like this, you're not going to get into a good college, and you're not going to go anywhere in life.
Yeah.
And it's scary to hear your entire close friend group
For sure.
tell you that.
Yeah.
So did I listen to the advice? Maybe a good thing, maybe a bad thing, but I ended up not. And I just continued doing what I was doing. So that's where I was at before.
Yeah.
And to be frank, they would have been absolutely right if certain things didn't fall into place or certain changes on my end weren't made. So I went out of my way to always teach myself, even if it wasn't friggin' geometry or whatever.
Yeah.
I'd watch TED Talks all the time. I'd go on YouTube. I would learn about the topics that I actually found interesting.
Yeah.
And so I never stopped teaching myself. It just wasn't the same structured curriculum that you found in a public high school.
Yeah.
So anyway, after that, went to college, or attempted college, I should say. Ended up lasting half a semester at a community college, and I was like, you know what, man, this is the same exact thing as high school, and I'm not interested in this, and this just isn't for me. And so I dropped out. I wasn't sure what I was going to do. Ended up enlisting in the Marine Corps, and did that, which was quite an experience in itself. But to point out a couple positives from it, I mean, first of all, the people that you meet, they're hard, awesome, good, truly to the core people.
Yeah.
Being able to network with them is super critical. And on top of that, they force discipline on you, right? I think that's like one of the most cliche basic things you can say about the military is that you're going to come out more disciplined. And it's completely true. That's, that maybe that's why the cliche exists.
Yeah.
It doesn't make anything else after seem as difficult. So did that. When I got out, I was delivering pizzas. And it's interesting. I'll tell you a little story about when I was in. The hustler mentality was always there. So I don't know if, actually, I'm not even sure if I've ever, I mean, we've been friends for years. I'm not sure if I've ever told you this story. When I was in, I used to mess around and flip electronics. I'm not sure if I brought this up to you.
Like the PlayStations and stuff?
Yeah. So I'd take Xboxes and PlayStations and laptops and whatever and buy them from the guys who needed money for cigarettes and dip and whatever bullshit, and then end up flipping it to the guys who were looking for electronics. And it was funny. I mean, you get paid very little in the military, especially at the low rank that I was at, and I would walk around with like big rolls of 20s and 100s in my cargo pockets from just bullshitting around with that kind of stuff. So looking back, I didn't think anything of it at the time. I was just like, yeah, it's just a little hustle that I'm doing to make some extra money. And looking back on it now, it's interesting to think about, because it's not a college degree or not, in my scenario, it's not a college degree or lack of, it's not military experience or lack of, it's not good grades or lack of. It was just that mentality of like, find a way to get what you want, find a way to hustle and produce. So anyway, got out, was delivering pizzas for like 6-7 months in a, kind of funny, in a BMW that I bought with the money that I had. So I'd pull up to people's house with their pizza delivery in a BMW, and they're like, "What is going on?" My priorities were pretty out of whack at that time. It should not have been what I spent the money on, but it ended up being the case. And didn't know what I was going to do. And the Middle Eastern and Southeast Asian stereotypes are all true, man. Your parents want you to get straight A's. They want you to become a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer. And those are like your options, basically. So my poor mother must have been off the wall. All of a sudden bad grades, all of a sudden dropping out of college, and all of a sudden enlisting in the Marine Corps. Like, those are the polar opposites of what all the norms are. And so I was delivering pizzas, didn't know what to do. I had a buddy, Paul, who worked at a dealership, and he got me a little bit of a hookup and an interview with someone that's grown to become one of my mentors and good friends, Jack.
Yeah,
Letts.
of course.
And interviewed with Jack, and it went well, and they hired me for sales, and so the rest is history. So I've been doing it for like 9 years or something like that, and a few years in, ended up getting promoted from sales to finance, and been doing it since. So
Yeah. No, I think, I mean, I remember at the time, I mean, I've known you practically the whole time, and I think the whole time, like, that transition wasn't as seamless as it seemed. Like, you had to, like, put in so much effort and put in your sweat equity, because in order to progress, that's what people don't really understand, is, like, in order to progress at those kind of levels, you have to do things differently than other people, whether that means, like, eat more shit than other people or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, put in more effort or do both things at once and prove yourself.
Yeah, one of the biggest obstacles, I would say, was being young.
Yeah.
People form their opinions on you regardless of what your production or ability is before they, get to know you half the time. And so you see a 22, 23, 24-year-old kid, and you assume that that's somebody who doesn't have maybe the skill or mental ability to make up for a lack of tenure, or a lack of experience.
Yeah.
So that was one of the I was always like trying to figure out a way to prove myself, and sometimes I fail. I've failed often. I fail all the time.
Yeah.
I failed 1,000,000 times.
Yeah.
I failed 100,000 times more than I've succeeded.
Yeah.
But the couple successes that come through,
They outweigh it.
They outweigh it. They tend to they make the effort worth it, at least.
Yeah,
right? So
exactly.
I can't tell you, man. There's been so many times that I was like, man, forget this business. It's long hours.
Yeah.
It's relatively difficult work. It's the pay is very, very varied, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
It's not a steady paycheck. It's not like, okay, every week I'm expecting this amount to hit my account. No, if you didn't produce for 2 weeks because you went on a bad run, well, figure out a way to pay your bills. I hope you do, but that's how it goes. It's all commission based. So there was quite a few barriers to have to mentally get over.
Yeah.
The lack of consistent pay, the fact that everybody thinks you're just some dumbass kid.
Yeah.
And that's universal.
Yeah.
I mean, and you look at the type of being in the car business, especially in other segments of finance may be different, but being in the car business specifically, think about the type of personalities that are going to be there. It's all like type A kind of dominant personalities. Everybody wants to give you the finger and tell you to get out of their way.
Yeah.
So when you're a young, short, skinny kid, like you gotta, I don't know, you gotta go out of your way to maybe prove it.
Yeah, 100%. No, I think the age thing is a huge deal. I mean, obviously
Definitely,
we've all dealt with that at some point or another.
Yeah.
That was a huge problem for me always.
That was a big thing for me. Lack of a better word, the corporate world. Mm-hmm. Being, a 22, 23-year-old kid working in finance in a sales role, trying to get customers and like wanting to lend them money. Mm-hmm. The 80% of the time it was how do you know what you're talking about?
Right.
Yeah.
How old are you?
And it's interesting you bring that up because it's not just from the people you work with, it's from the clients as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So, and that was one thing that you got to overcome that right at the beginning.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have your clients' trust and they think you're an idiot or they think you're not going to know what you're doing,
right,
you're not going to be successful.
Yeah. Even getting transferred a portfolio, if we had one of my coworkers, if they left to go to a different institution, they would pass off their portfolio to like a number of different people, and the clients that got passed off to me, the first time I met them, they were like they were requesting someone else before I even had a chance to like do anything for them.
Yeah.
It was like I met with them, introduced myself, and they were already going to like my manager to ask for someone else. And their reasoning, there was no reason. It was just they saw me, they're like, he's 23 years old, I don't want to work with this kid.
Right.
So, I mean, some people just aren't going to give you that chance, but
Sure.
if the people let you prove yourself, then that's really all you need.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest things that I, as a salesman, it's different. So like when in my business at least, they don't expect anyone who's an expert on anything other than just knowing what they're selling.
For sure.
But in the finance role, especially when you have the title of manager at the end, they expect you to be a pro at everything you do. So I'd say the first year that I was doing it, one of the biggest things that I had to kind of recognize and overcome, so to speak, is I need to make sure that the client knows that I know what I'm talking about from second one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what my entire focus was for the first 5 minutes that I met a client. You ask the right questions. You speak in a relatively stern tone.
Mm-hmm.
Zero lack of confidence, even if you're unsure.
Yep.
Like, you can figure it out later and do your best not to misspeak. But if there's any lack of confidence, they smell that like a shark smells blood, right?
Yeah.
So in the first 5 minutes, you can kind of mold the experience that your customer is going to have with you and how they see you. And that was one of the kind of the toughest things to learn. I feel like a lot of people who get into this position later on and are older and they just look more seasoned and they look like they know what they're talking about, don't have to do that. But you see a 24-year-old kid sitting in front of you, and you're a 55-year-old guy, and your income on your credit application is $800,000 a year.
Yeah.
You're going to look at me like I'm a jagoff unless I make certain that you know that I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yep.
So similar kind
absolutely.
of experience there.
So when you got into your first sales role at the dealership, I know, like, when I was talking to Kyle and he was saying he wanted to have you on this week, and he had mentioned we wanted to have the whole college conversation, and I was like, well, we both went to college, and I thought you went to college too. Kyle's like, no, he didn't go. I'm like, he works in a finance role in a dealership, and he didn't go to college.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to just hear from you, like, when you started there as a salesperson, did you have that, like, vision to get to that finance role? Even if you didn't, how did that, come about?
Yeah. So when I first started, I was uncertain, and I want to add this on too, because I guarantee finance people are going to watch this.
Yeah.
It's not super uncommon. It's quite common for people to not have degrees in especially in finance related items and become a finance manager. That just comes from, if you're skilled at your job as a salesperson,
right,
that tends to be one of the steps that follows. Either sales manager or finance manager, depending on what kind of route you go. But yeah, so when I first started, I can tell you this, I've been doing it for 9 years. Now I know this is my career. When I first started, I wasn't.
You weren't sold on it?
Sold on it. Mm-hmm. And that's probably the best way to put it. I wasn't sold on it. I was worried about taking a role that's completely commission. That's a little scary as a kid, because I was like, 20 years old, I think. That's a little scary as a kid. And then again, I didn't have any bills. I lived with my mother. Didn't have a significant car payment to speak of or anything.
Yeah.
But I would say, to answer your question, maybe a year and a half to 2 years in, I realized that, number one, there's a reasonable enough income potential that I can service my own needs and the things that I want. And number two, I just friggin' like it.
Yeah.
I like sales, not because I like selling stuff specifically, but because I like the fact that every single day I get to talk to 5 new sets of people. When people think finance in their head, they think, okay, you're sitting in a cubicle and typing stuff numbers. Up. That's not. There's different, aspects of finance. And if in the finance role that I was in, I didn't get to talk to those people, that wouldn't have been the route that I went.
Yep.
I need to have conversation. I want to meet people. I like talking.
Yep.
And I like hearing from other people. A lot of it is, you can live vicariously through people by having them tell you their experiences. And just in life, that's like a critical aspect for me. I want to make sure that I do that, because I know I got maybe 90 years to live, and I'm not going to be able to do everything.
Yeah.
It's not possible.
Exactly.
So talking to people that have is critical. It gives you more experience in life, just
For
because you get to see what it was like for them, and you can definitely live through it. So it was a couple years in, I knew that I wanted to pursue it, and when that couple years came, that's when I said, okay, I'm going to figure out how to move up in this business.
Yeah.
And that's when kind of the mindset change of, like, this is a job to this is a career.
Good for you.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
So.
Should we get into the college debate?
Yeah. Let's get
into it. Is it a debate?
It might be. I don't know. We'll see how it turns out.
Cool, yeah.
Well, I guess none of us really are not in a traditional path where college would have helped us make any more money. So it really doesn't
directly.
There's really no debate in that, I think, which is interesting, because no one's we're all doing stuff that has nothing to really to do with our degree, which, I mean, you obviously learn things from school, and 100%. I say that all the time. I mean, the things I learned most in school were just simply how my peers are, and more than anything, how shitty government employees are. And I'm sorry if you're a government employee. Don't be shitty at your job, because the people who work at school are so incompetent, so terrible, and no one wants to help you. I'm like, this is literally your job. Like, I'm paying you to do
Mayor
this.
Lightfoot, we hang out in your city pretty often.
Yeah.
And I apologize for Kyle's comments. We don't mean that.
Yeah, I
to
mean
you specifically.
I mean it. But what I'm saying is this: like, you realize, like, somebody could tell you no, and you're like, wait, why is this person telling me this? They have why am I letting somebody like in a government position control my life? Obviously, don't break the rules, but like when you're not breaking the rules and somebody's still trying to like not help you in your best interest, it's like you kind of have to go out of your way in this life to make sure that you're creating your own luck and your own happiness. And that's, if anything, that's what college taught. It was a very expensive, stupid lesson, but it taught me that at the bare minimum. And then you also see how, like I said, with your peers, you see how other people think and act and what their goals are and what they want to do. And if you're in any sort of entrepreneurial setting or anything at all, you realize, like, man, no one really thinks this way. Even in business class, people still don't want to, they still, and if they do, they don't know what they're going to do. And it's just very interesting to me, because I think that's why, for me personally, starting a business way before, middle school, high school, into college, it was like, wait a second, like, I have all these like years on people, because it's like my sport, whatever, but I'm like, wait a second, these guys are in college and they still don't know what they want to do, which is fine. But once you get out of college, here's the problem. And you move out, because everyone wants to keep with the Joneses. Then they get a rent payment. Then they get a car payment. Then they get the insurance payment. And then what do? You take any job you can get. And well, guess what happens when you take any job you can get? You do that for 5 years. Like, well, after 5 years, and then it's an amazing thing. It's how life goes. But then you're 30. Before you know it, you get married, you have kids, and then you'd have no opportunity to even create that business you were talking about. So that's like the thing, like the conundrum I feel like is like, I always see with people is like, oh, I want to start a business, but they don't even like put the steps necessary forward to do it. But that's where I think college is interesting, because like I've said it before in previous podcasts, like it gives you the time to be able to do that, but no one utilizes that time. So the way you utilize the time and the way you utilize that time between, say, 18 and 21 or something, 17, 21, is interesting. So I want to hear like Nick's side of it. Like,
I mean, for me, going to college, just like you said, some people don't know what they want to do, and people just go through the motions and, take their gen eds and like try out different courses and don't really know what the hell they want to do. And that was me for the first couple of years. I really had no idea what I wanted to do. And I don't want to speak for everyone, but I feel like a lot of people go to college just because of the social pressure to do so.
100%. I couldn't agree more.
I would agree entirely.
That's like 100%.
And that's a whole different conversation based on like I went to this school. I went to this school. I'm better than you because I went to this school. And that stuff just like, I have no time for that. I think that's total bullshit, because guess what? Once you graduate and you get that first job, no one fucking cares what college you went to. They just cared about where you last worked and what you did there. Sure. So, I mean, that becomes irrelevant very fast. But at the time, it matters to people, which it shouldn't. But besides that, what college taught me was kind of like how you were talking about with in high school, you didn't get good grades, all that stuff. I was the same way. My priorities were out of whack. All I cared about was being with my friends, playing sports. For sure. I didn't give a shit about school. And then when the time came senior year, when everyone's like applying to colleges and getting accepted and all this crap, I really didn't know what I was going to do, because my GPA was like, I was like just under like 3, something like that. So like it wasn't great enough to get. That's high.
I was like, damn, that's pretty good.
Anyway, whatever. But like it wasn't good enough to get into like a Big Ten school or anything like that. So I knew I wanted to play baseball in college, so I found a small D3 school close enough where I could still come home, like see my family, and far enough away where I didn't feel like I was still home. So I went to go do that. First 2 years had no idea what I was doing, but I think what college really taught me was how to discipline myself and how to motivate myself on my own. And obviously spending that much money on something that kind of motivates you and lights a fire under your ass a little bit.
For sure.
And my parents were blown away with like my grades the first semester. Like, what the hell happened to you? Like, literally, they were like, what happened to you? What's going on? And like, I just kept that up, and like, that was like, it taught me how to set goals and how to reach them. That's really what it taught me. And aside from like my finance degree and all that, I used that for a couple years, and now it's pretty much worthless. But it taught me how to, run my business now, how to keep my books, all that stuff. And like my job that I got with my degree taught me how to talk to business owners and ask the right questions and the psychology of sales. So like a lot of good things did come from me going to college. I'm not going to say that it was completely worthless because I didn't think it was. And even like the social experience, like
for sure,
I met so many good fucking people that are my best friends now.
The networking is critical.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that to your point, like I wouldn't say it's worthless. It's a lot of the actual class information isn't what you take away from it.
No.
It's like, you know what I mean? It's like you realize, like, for me, I think like feeling out structures, forcing yourself to do something you don't want to do,
exactly.
like
because you're by
dealing
yourself.
with it. Exactly.
You don't have your parents waking you up to go to high school.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like those internal struggles you have to deal with.
And you're paying a lot more money, so
for sure.
Better
exactly.
make it worth it.
Exactly. And it's like that constant struggle inside your head. And that's pretty much my point. I'm not saying people shouldn't do it. And that was like the point I always wanted to prove was like, hey, if I could, start a business in college, so can you. So don't tell me that you don't need to. Right. But then to like Zane's point, like he did take a different approach, which I love to see because he's like living proof, like he out hustled the college thing. But a lot of people are like, oh, I'm gonna start a business and not go to college. It's like, okay, then put your money where your mouth is. You know what I mean?
You better work at it.
Yeah, exactly. Because you have like an extra like. And here's the other problem too, though. I know this by default that you had this like kind of, because obviously the brown parent dynamic. Mm-hmm. You have this kind of pressure. And Fez and I talked about it on the last podcast too. Like you have this kind of pressure to do certain things, become a doctor, lawyer, all this stuff. Of course, I got that too. I kind of wheezed my way out of. I was the one paying for it, so no one really. They're like, well, he can't be an engineer. He wants to do his thing, whatever.
Sure.
But still going. But the thing is, my argument was always this: like you have to deal with a shitload more pressure in your life if you decide not to go.
Oh yeah.
It's almost. I mean, obviously, it's an expensive way to get the get out of jail free card, but it's like you take on this other subset of like issues of like, what are you doing? Why didn't you go to school? And you have to literally prove yourself on a daily basis with somebody watching over you like a hawk. And to me, that, I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily why I did it, but looking into, I'm like, you get this kind of like hall pass when you're in school, like do whatever you want, figure out your own things.
Yeah.
And that 4 or 5 years, whatever it may be, I mean, you literally had to be like, well, I have to prove myself. There's no other way around it.
100%. And you get it from not just your immediate family. You get it from your extended family. You get it from your community.
Yeah.
And I was quite close to the few friends I mentioned earlier, and I knew their parents well, and I'd get it from them too. So you get it from such a wide array of people, and you continuously have to find a way to respond. Which is whatever. And I'm glad, because I'll tell you what, at the end of the day, that's sales skill, right? 100%. Learning how to take an objection that you get from someone and respond to it and sell yourself to some extent. Yeah. So maybe that training came early partly because of that.
I'm sure it did.
Yeah.
So I look back, and I actually haven't thought about it until just now, but that might have been a super critical piece of it that you got to prove yourself to people all the time.
You got to work harder. Exactly. Yeah. And there's literally no way around it. And I think even like in the dynamic of like not leaving here, because I know now hindsight's 20/20, right? I say that every single day of my life. Sure. But in freshman or senior year of high school, it was like you were like not cool if you didn't like leave town or like you didn't go to a cool college, right? And that social pressure now no one talks about, because all the people who did, guess what? Maybe they worked for it, maybe it didn't.
Yeah.
But it might have been cool, but guess what? Once it's over, it's over. And those same people are stuck with a bunch of debt, and they might not even have a job, whatever it may be. It's all the power to them. In a way, when I was younger, obviously I was jealous, but I knew I just simply couldn't do it because I had to work. But either way, I think it's interesting to look at the dynamic, because if somebody's watching this and they're like 17, 18, or 16, whatever, it's like everything's about where you go to school, Mm-hmm. It's like, dude, it really doesn't. I mean, it does, man. I get it. If you want girls or guys, whoever's watching, or partying, stuff like that, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Obviously academics, I'm not going to discredit that, or you're a good athlete or something, but at the same time, like I don't know, like I feel like there's so much more pressure and so much more value put on it than that's actually real.
There is.
Yeah, it plays a much smaller role than at least the public school system tells you that it does.
Yeah.
I mean, your first friggin' 12, 13 years of life don't even count. When you're under 13 years old, you're learning how to fucking walk, talk, and breathe.
Yeah.
So you look at everything post that, from when what do you graduate college when you're 22 if you're on a normal
21
22 when you're on a normal
something like that.
So the 10 years that come after that, that's if the average person lives in the US like till they're 85 or something like that, that's 1/8 of your life. And I can tell you this, I succumb to that to some extent, because that's all that my teachers and my peers and my my friends' parents and my own family told me was that this is the most critical molding period, and it's going to dictate the rest of your life. Not the freaking case.
Yeah.
Not the case at all.
Yeah.
The truth couldn't be farther from that.
Yeah, 100%.
Can you make some long-lasting changes to your future in that time? Absolutely. You go to friggin' Harvard.
Yeah.
And you go to Harvard Law and you graduate. From there, yeah, you're probably going to be an incredible, or at least a quite high-paid lawyer.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty fair expectation.
Yeah.
But it's not a guarantee, number one. And number two, it's a very small percentage of people, even the ones that do go to college, that are going to be in such an elite environment that they're going to build the networking kind of points to be able to do that later on.
Yeah.
So is it the most critical? If you're 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 watching this, don't stress too hard.
Yeah.
It's not going to mold your life. When I was 17, 18, 19 years old, I was useless to society.
Yeah.
I sold weed and I built computers to make money.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any valuable place in society.
Yeah.
And it's not about your income. It's
Yeah.
about being useful to the entire group of people around you.
Yeah.
And I wasn't.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm maybe slightly more now, but there's plenty more that I want to do to be more so. But I didn't know shit when I was 17, 18 years old. And you can't expect a 17, 18-year-old kid to make the picture-perfect adult decisions that's going to form the rest of their life. It's not going to form the rest of your life. It's not. No matter what you do, it's not going to form the rest of your life. You can always change it. You can always do well, even if you don't follow a traditional path.
Yeah.
Especially because so many kids, I see college as somewhat of a risk for people because, well, first of all, there's the money side, and second, you're putting all your eggs in one basket. You're studying one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you double major, minor, you're still essentially studying one thing. And in my case, 2 years down the line, you discover that's not what you want to do.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say you wasted your time because you learned a lot of valuable lessons within that time, but I think it's a risk and it's a gamble to go to college and really put all your eggs in one basket on one thing.
Yeah, I guess it's a risk and gamble to anything.
Yeah.
Right? It's a risk to go. It's a risk to not go.
Yeah.
And actually, I want to touch on something you said earlier, Nick. You mentioned the first couple of years you were kind of in that same boat where you didn't know what was going on, where you were going to go, what you want to do with it. What was your turning point in school? Because I would call you a success story of college. You maybe didn't know what you were going to do the first couple of years, but it sounds like you figured it out and got the skills that you needed to excel into whatever you end up doing.
I don't know if I can really pinpoint that aha moment that I had where I wanted to, do finance econ. I think it was just I talked to a ton of people, like people majoring in marketing, people majoring in entrepreneurship, people majoring in econ, finance, and I just talked to everyone. Mm-hmm. And because I had no idea what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. I had no clue. So I was just talking to all these people. What are the benefits of this? What are the benefits of that? Cons of this? And I just kind of formulated my own opinion based on those things and kind of went for it. And I took a few classes. I enjoyed it, and I decided that was the route I want to go. And it's funny. Everyone will always joke about because so many people, at least at my school, were all switching over to finance majors, and it was right when Wolf of Wall Street came out.
Yeah.
Everyone's
that was one of my big influences. I'm not gonna lie.
So everyone was like, "Did you switch to a finance major because of Wolf of Wall Street?" I'm like, I've seen the movie 50 times, so that might have had something to do with it
subconsciously, for sure. And that's fair. That's an awesome movie. Yeah. Who doesn't want to be Jordan Belfort?
That's the best
at least the
movie.
first half of his life.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
That's interesting though.
No, yeah, I think that's what's interesting. I think people put so much pressure on it and so much. It has a lot to do with the parents. It has a lot to do with just kids' friends. I mean, we all know how that peer pressure thing works. And I always say I never would want to go back in time. I'm chilling. I'm cool. I don't want to relive the lessons I had to learn. No. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if that's a pessimistic way to look at it. I was bullied as a kid. I don't want to go back there. And even beyond that, the uncertainty of college and all that stuff. And now it's dealing with all that stuff, being in the classes, hating the classes, knowing essentially, in a way, not to be overconfident, more than a lot of these teachers, or at least having more actual experiences in what the hell that they're talking about, which blows my mind.
Yeah, well, your experience was totally unique because you had already been running businesses by the time you were,
Well, I think that was what was frustrating, but like I knew I had to go to college still.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like when you take like I got a D in marketing, and I'm like, this doesn't even make. I'm like, because he's like, you didn't take the report. I'm like, this doesn't even make sense. Like, but I get it. At the same time, you can make the same argument, be like, well, you probably didn't follow the guidelines that were given to you. You took a different approach in your project, because I remember exactly why like they did it. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I understand how college works. I'm not an idiot, but at the same time, that's how I know it's not structured properly. But that's how I know that there's some kind of advantage in life if you think differently than other people. Because if I followed that traditional scale, went to a traditional marketing job, and guess what? Maybe I get an A in marketing, and then maybe I wouldn't have a job I really liked very much, or didn't produce the results that I wanted to produce. So I think that's the interesting part with college. Like it teaches you how to think, but also not going teaches you also how to think. Yeah. But there's like more pressure of like understanding like, all right, what am I going to do to pivot out of this? And it's almost like you have to continually explain yourself to the day that you become known as, oh, this guy was a success story and he didn't go to college. Up until that point, it's like people are like almost getting after you.
No, you get eggs thrown at you until you click and pass that one point.
I feel like even going to college and like not going to a cool college, or like no one even knew where he went. It's like no one really cared unless like you show some sort of like relative success, and then people are like, oh, this is I knew this was gonna happen. It's like, nah, I don't think so. I don't think that's how it works.
You're past relative success now, and you're young. I mean, how old are you?
23.
Yeah, so your life isn't a D in marketing. Obviously, right?
No, it's just interesting to me because the way kids look at you and stuff in class, like whether it's like, oh man, there's an assignment last night, and then kids look at you like you're an idiot, like a complete idiot, and I'm like, and they don't even care what you do. But then it's like the same day, like everyone graduates, it's like, hey man, you hiring? It's like, dude, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense.
Fuck off.
Like literally, like I mean it. I'm like, you were literally just talking shit to me last week because I was like, I needed like help with something, and now it's like the tables turn, and it's like what you put your value on, I guess. It's I don't know. College is just a weird. School is just a weird dynamic in and of itself. Like I always say that's about sports. Like there's so much energy and so much shit that's put on like these things, like being a star quarterback or something. It's like, but it doesn't matter after a couple years or maybe 5 years, 10 years, and I think that's the kids that we should be speaking to, or just people in general. Is like, hey man, you're good. Like,
you're
just
good.
chill,
That's
just keep going.
As
long as you put energy, what is it? Energy in, energy out, like kind of thing. Like as long as you put energy into this world and you're not like a menace to society, like you will reap the reward. You just got to keep like trying and putting yourself in the position to get lucky, like we always talk about. But I don't know. That's why it's 4 stars, not 5. You got to just put yourself in those positions to do it, and it doesn't matter. I think that's what's crazy. Like I'm like the most pessimistic about college because like I did it, like I only did this so I could say this and be that much of an asshole when I talk about it. And like you're like optimistic, and then Nick obviously like he did everything and like he excelled in college too.
But he's one of the success stories.
No, exactly.
So it's a little different.
That's why I think the dynamic is so interesting. And that's, I don't know. I think it's cool to think about because I guess you could have somebody here who's, I don't know. You could have an entrepreneur who's 35 who does some ridiculously successful business, and then you could also have a guy who's trading on Wall Street who got his degree in finance who makes the same amount of money who went to college. I don't know.
Maybe the conclusion that can be drawn is that college isn't a deciding factor.
Exactly.
I mean, people who are going to make it are going to make it, right?
Well, let me ask you guys this, because I feel like a lot of kids go to college because they don't know what they want to do.
Yeah.
That's just their option. They have no other options. So what would you say to the kid that doesn't know what they want to do?
Go to college.
Yeah. Do the cheapest option, community college. For example, if you live in like West Chicago suburbs, I would say to go to COD. It's a new campus. It's nice. It's really nice.
It's actually
beautiful. Very nice.
The classes I took there were great.
Yeah.
Like it's way cheap. UIC is like $10,000 a semester. COD is like $600 like per whatever class. Like go there and then figure out that you don't want to do it. Because guess what? Every single college is like a 2+2 program. So you got 2 years to figure your shit out. You'll blow through a few grand. And you know what? At the end of the day, it's not that big of a deal. You could still live with your parents, save your money, and they'll be off your back. And then in that 2 years, take that as a 2-year window to go to a nice, easygoing community college where maybe you're not going to have that much fun, but at the same time, you can build up your stuff. If you want to party and meet your future wife or husband at college, which I'm sure a lot of people want to do, go do it. But you got to be able to reap the rewards and benefits, or what's the opposite of rewards? like bad things,
The consequences. Yeah.
of anything that you do in life. So if you want to do
I
that,
didn't go to college. I know.
yeah, exactly. See, I clearly wasn't paying enough attention. So that's, I don't know. I think that's a thing that to really, look into. And, even if you do go to college, if you are at community, finish it then. Who cares? Like, it's not like you have to. It's not like like you said, it's not a deciding factor. You could do either one. And you could either not go, you can go full on, or you can go halfway and just get it done. And because it clicks everything for everything else. If you're the kind of personality where you just want everyone off your back, go do the least amount possible. I'm just going to give you that advice. Just do the least amount possible and skate through.
It's a relatively effective way of spending the time that you would have been just sitting home and jerking off or whatever you're going to do. If between 18 and 20, you're completely confused. You have no idea what you want to do. You basically you have 3 paths, and 2 of them people are not comfortable with.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that. I should say the majority of people aren't comfortable with.
Yeah.
You can go into something sales related.
Yeah.
And I talked to 1 million people, and 999,000 of them say I'm not comfortable with sales. I don't want to talk to people. I don't want to sell things to them. I don't want to be put on the spot in that way.
It takes experience to get comfortable, though.
Yeah.
100%. And I agree with you. But the ones that don't have the confidence to go in, they're probably not going to succeed. Yeah. And that's a very general way of looking at it, because you should give it a shot. But a lot of sales is having the confidence to speak to someone and to relay your message or your product or whatever it is. Sure. And if you don't have the confidence to even give it a shot, and I would say the first thing you can do is college. We've talked about that. The second thing is sales, and the third thing is the military.
Yeah.
A lot of people are also not comfortable with that, whether it's for political reasons or they're afraid they're going to get their legs blown off or die. Yeah. By the way, that's a big misconception. Like 99% of the military is completely safe, and you're not in combat.
Yeah.
You turn a wrench in a uniform or sit on a computer. So don't completely discount it based on just that fact.
Yeah.
If you go to the Marine Corps and you go infantry, right, you're in a higher class of danger, but join the Air Force, join the Navy, and sit on a computer and learn a useful skill that you can use in the civilian world when you come out. And then you got the GI Bill, and you can go to college if you choose to, or you can take the skills that you learned there. Honestly, the military is starting to become college that you get paid to go to, without having to worry about a scholarship. I mean, the vast array of paths that you can go down in the military is almost mind-blowing compared to, I'm assuming, and I was in the military 50 years ago, but I'm assuming it's way wider now than it used to be.
For sure.
I mean, you can go into something, you can be a photographer in the military, and you can learn how to do it properly, and when you come out, you can pursue that. You can sit at a computer, you can learn coding in the military, and use it for the government's benefit if that suits your views. For 4 years or whatever your contract is, and then you come out and you have a very marketable skill in the civilian world. So that's actually one of the things that I think not enough people even consider.
I don't think people know.
And that's why they think, okay, if I join the military, I'm going to go to combat with a rifle and I'm going to get my face blown off. Almost all of it isn't that. Almost all of it. So it's something that people should consider if they're open to it. Whether it's politically or mentally or otherwise. It doesn't, and they pay you. So it's like, you're not paying anything to be there like you would college. So there's 3 paths, and I think the other 2 should be considered before it's just an assumption that you're gonna go to college. But then again, it's an interesting thing, right? You think about the mindset of the people that just go to college because that's what they're supposed to do. Would those people have excelled anywhere else anyway because they don't have the ability to free think, or they may do it because they don't have the ability to free think. So I don't know. I can't solve all the problems. I mean, we can point them out, but who knows? Who knows what the real kind of underlying factor is that determines what's going to happen to you and if you'll find success in what you choose to find success in.
I think it's like putting yourself in the position always to like get more stuff done, because the more you do, the more you kind of output. And I always say that like college is good for that reason, or whatever you do is good for that reason, because it reminds you of the alternative.
For sure.
You're in school. I remember the reason I love work way more when I was in school. I would work in school because I liked work so much in comparison to school. I mean, I always like to work, but like it just reminds you. And if you're, in the military, you might really be like, man, I really don't want to do this the rest of my life. I want to do this, or I really love this. It gives you opportunity to figure out yourself a little bit, right? And like find out what you really want to do. And it gives you that kind of alternative. It's the same reason why you feel those endorphins when you finish, or when you're running and you finish. You're like, oh, that's over with. So you got to put yourself in those that's over with kind of scenarios, because if all you do is like sit at home and play video games all day, you never get yourself, because that's where all the happiness and dopamine is released in your brain when you're like, oh, I can't wait to do that. And if you're trying to trick your mind into working or doing whatever, something productive, and you put yourself in more of those opportunities, I think you're just better off in general.
Half of it's like shooting blind, man.
Yeah.
You'll do 90 things and you'll be like, man, I'm so glad that that's over. And then you'll find one thing that you're like, oh, I kind of,
I can do that
I
more
enjoy doing
often.
this.
Yeah.
And it's productive also.
Yeah.
So,
sure.
I mean, I don't know, I'm kind of nerdy. I like playing video games, but I'm not good enough to be pro, and it's useless to society and to my own well-being, so I don't do that all day.
Yeah.
So eventually, when you find something that, number one, you do enjoy doing, and number two, will at least be valuable to society and hopefully also support you, it's hit or miss. You just got to keep trying until you figure it out.
Yeah, for sure.
So the main message that I would give to an 18-year-old kid who's not sure what they want to do and whether they should go to college or not, just whatever it is, try it. Whether it's college or the military or starting a business or going into sales or whatever. Fine, become a professional video gamer. Whatever.
Exactly.
Just try it.
Gary Vee says it all the time. Try fucking everything.
Yeah.
He says it all the time.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
figure out what you like.
And I think it takes a negative, I truly believe this, I think it takes a negative experience to motivate someone in the right direction.
100%.
Sure, absolutely.
100%.
You need to be pushed away from something, not pulled towards something, right? Yeah. So, and the most frustrating thing about, like, I'm not a big fan of the public school system.
Yeah.
At least what I went through. And I grew up in a nice town. Like, Elmhurst is a pretty, now it's become even higher end town, very good education there. But the emphasis on these few years of your life from 16 to 22 are going to be so critical, and they're going to mold you, scares the shit out of kids into not trying all the things that they should be trying, and they just do the traditional path of, oh, my counselor and my teachers and my mom all told me to go to college, so that's what I'm going to do. It's not that serious, so to speak. 16 to 22, you're good. Go to college for a couple years, drop out, try something else if it didn't speak to you. Yeah. The pressure that's put on by the public school system to say, hey, this is going to be the most formidable, or the most forming, I should say, years of your life, scares the crap out of kids to not trying things that they would normally try. And that's one of the biggest beefs that I had with it, because I don't know, I said F you and I did whatever I wanted anyway, but a lot of people did it.
100%.
And maybe it's because they were scared, because they were like, it was ingrained in you. Oh, dude, if you don't do this right, you're going to screw up your whole life. No, it's not the case. Yeah.
And the public school system puts that on kids.
100%.
Like, I don't know how your high schools were, but ours had, like, it was called May Day. I don't know, did you guys have that at high school?
No.
What, describe it? Probably has a different name for it or something.
It's May 1st is the day that most kids are accepted to college.
Okay, yeah.
Or, like, that's, like, the deadline for applications is May 1st. So before then, everyone knows where they're going.
Yeah.
And every single kid that got into college wore their merch, like sweatshirts, hats, whatever. And that day was just the most, like, everyone's walking around with their chest puffed out. And then, like, the kids that aren't wearing anything, it's like everyone's judging the crap out of them.
Yeah. And how demotivating is that?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I guarantee you they still do it.
Yeah.
I don't think they should. I think that's like the worst thing you could do to people. But
people are focused on the wrong things.
Yeah, and it's funny, if you could tell that, and not to generalize kids in high school, but if you could tell that pompous 17-year-old kid, like, hey, you may have gone to a great college, but you're not guaranteeing anything.
Yeah.
Don't frown upon the kid who's not wearing what
it'll take them 4, 5, 6, 10 years to figure that out.
Yeah.
And that's the sad
truth. It took
me
too, and I took I took an odd path, and it was the same thing for me. I was like, shit, like, did I make a mistake? I don't know.
I've said it once, I said it a million times. You peak in high school or you peak the rest of your life. There's
right.
No
Actually, I had a blast in high school, though.
Well, high school was the best.
I had a good time.
No, I'm not saying that. You can have a great time. I'm just saying if that's the peak of your life, then guess what? It's probably not going up for you very much.
I almost failed everything, but me and my boys partied a lot. So like, it was fun. So I had a good time.
Yeah, no, I had a good time too. It was good. I mean, I'd maybe go back for a little bit, but not like, I wouldn't want to actually go back in time. If they were like, you want to click a button, I'd be like, no, I'm good.
No, I'd do a week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a week or something.
I
would be
do
cool.
a week of high school again.
Maybe even a month.
Yeah, I'll go from class to class and pretend like I'm paying attention, then
Yeah.
party with my boys. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it'd be a good time.
If you went back in time, would you have access to like your Amex limit or no?
Uh,
No, that's against.
Can
the,
I?
That's against the rules.
Yeah.
That's against the rules.
Dude,
What do you
no,
go back
actually,
on?
I don't want because if the debt follows me back to the future, I'm fucked.
Yeah.
I was a
Irresponsible.
very irresponsible to have a credit card limit now that I have now at 16 years old.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be sitting here. I'd have bankrupted myself for sure.
Yes.
So
Can I put a car on a credit card?
yeah, right. I know, buy a Lambo.
Yeah.
But I would have been 17 with a license and a Lambo that I put on a credit card, whatever, man.
Yeah.
My future me will figure it out. Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
Maybe if he goes to college.
Yeah.
But that's a good place to wrap it all up, guys.
For sure.
Don't put too much pressure on going to school. If you do, obviously drop some questions. We're more than happy. Zane will be a regular guest on the show. I'm glad we were able to get the 3-mic situation figured out.
Yeah,
Props to Nick for
absolutely.
figuring that out because I was
Yeah,
about to
good
blow
work.
my brains
In
out.
like 3 minutes,
Yeah, it
by
took
the
me
way.
Yeah. But yeah, some things you got to just keep going. As you guys can see, the set keeps changing a little bit. We hard mounted the cameras finally, so we got some different angles going. Leave some comments down below wherever you came from. My Instagram, my business one is Solkar SULKR_media. That's where I post most of the time. Personal is Kyle Solkar, just normally. You can obviously follow us at 4 Stars Podcast. Nick, your Instagram is?
Personal Instagram is Nick Loggy, and my business one is Loggy_media.
Personal Instagram is Zain Maine, ZAINMAYNE, and business Instagram, I don't have one, but I work at Patrick BMW. If you want to follow their Facebook page, that'd be great. Look me up on their website. Come say hello, drop by, whatever, if you're out there.
Sounds good, guys. Thank you so very much for watching episode 4 of the 4 Stars Podcast. Always 4, not 5. I'll see you guys in the next episode.